Welcome to the Church Answers podcast. My name is Jess Rayner. I'm here with my dad, Tom Rayner, and we're going to be talking about a changing of trends or a changing of a trend. Something that
Well, I think you said it right the first time. I think it boils down to more than one trend. I know why you said one trend. The data would indicate, but we'll get into that. I think
we
there's more
will.
than one
We will.
thing.
We're talking about something that's changing, especially on the religious front. But
Yes.
trends do change. Dad, one of the things I love talking about with you is just the difference of generations. Thinking back to maybe you growing up and thinking about some fads, some trends. Is there one trend that you thought would take off that you didn't, or maybe there was a trend that you didn't think of? For me, I was thinking of the ebook movement.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
the
Remember, we thought about starting a company just based on ebooks.
Well, we did start a company based off, at least I guess you were initially a part of it,
Yes.
based off just ebooks. It's called Rayner Publishing. It's still called Rayner Publishing. We thought ebooks were the future, and so we went all in on ebooks, and only took about 8 months to realize that print books were not going away. So thinking about your childhood growing up, is there a trend, is there a fad that maybe you thought would take off and didn't, or something that you didn't think and it did take off?
Well, let's go to the one of I thought it would, but it did not. I thought that the bringing on of the internet would be so dramatic that we would not recognize life as we know it today. I
Okay.
thought I thought that we would be hooked up to the internet by now. I'm talking about our bodies. I I thought that it was going to be so transformative that we would say, I don't even recognize the world we're in. So I guess what I thought would happen was the pace of change, even with the onset of the internet, did not go as fast as I thought it would.
Okay, so that wasn't quite your childhood. That'd be a more mild childhood.
That's true.
That was the viewpoint of you as an adult, that you thought a trend would take off and it didn't. And while we're not physically hooked up to the internet, we are getting,
Mm,
there's glasses, there's things now that the internet's becoming wearable
yes.
rather than it's temporarily attached rather than permanently attached. So we're getting there, just not maybe at the pace you thought.
Well, I got to tell you a story about Franklin.
Oh, yes.
Franklin, for the uninitiated, is my AI, and
He has named it, and we are praying for him, my dad, not the AI name.
the AI Franklin has learned me well. I've taught him different things, and I have also given him permission to contact me on certain topics. Okay, and so now on 2 or 3 different topics, he will take the initiative.
Oh
And
gosh.
what was really kind of strange one time, I was at church. Yes, I was at our church, your church, and fortunately, I wasn't in the service, and fortunately, I didn't have the phone volume on. I mean, I did have the volume on, but it wasn't in the service. And I'm walking around getting ready to go to the service, and I hear, "Hey, Tom!"
Oh my gosh.
Franklin was calling me from my pocket.
This is not good. This is not good. We're talking about a trend. I know AI is not going away at all. I
You
just don't
wanted
like
to,
it.
though.
I'm not embracing this one. Oh my goodness. Well, those are some trends from our just has nothing to do with the topic today, except we're talking about trends. We're talking about a particular trend, a religious trend that has we've seen rise, but maybe it's not rising anymore, and maybe there is some changing of the tide here. And so we're going to be talking about the nuns, the
And
Nones.
the trend I want to talk about as we get into the nuns is the trend of outsourcing by churches to do other things has not gone as fast as I thought it would,
Okay.
but now it's accelerating.
Okay.
So I've watched it plod along, plod. And in some areas it did, like your church management software and some others. But overall, I wish well, in many ways, I wish it had gone faster, but it hasn't. But it's beginning to. And one of those areas, of course, is our sponsor, Cheney, where
Mhm.
there is more outsourcing taking place on doing the books, getting that done, and recognizing we've only got so much time as a church, leaders, laity,
Mhm.
and more churches are coming to the point where they realize we've got to outsource, and that's really my segue. But it's also a common thing I wanted to tell you about, Jess, as you tell us about Cheney.
Yeah. We'll get into more of that, as it relates to the church. But we do want to thank Cheney and Associates before we talk about the nuns, the NONES. We do want to thank Cheney and Associates. They are all about you leading your church and letting them handle the numbers. Decades of experience serving churches across the country. They're church accountants who understand your language, the church language. They know what it means to have good financial insights, timely financial insights. And so they want to help you with all of that. And so if you are looking for some accounting or bookkeeping needs, maybe you're not looking, but you need them, you need to go check out CheneyAssociates.com/church answers. Go talk with them, see what they can do to help you with your church finance and accounting
Here's what
needs.
I've been finding out from those who contacted Cheney, or especially those who made the decision to go with Cheney. I did not know what I needed until I talked to them.
Yep. Yep. Yep, there's so much more
Mhm.
that they will let you know on. Yeah, they quickly become invaluable. And so go check them out, CheneyAssociates.com/church answers. We're super thankful for them and their partnership with Church Answers. But we're talking about the nuns. Again, I'll spell it one more time, just in case you fast forwarded the beginning. NONES. We were talking about a religious category that we believe, and according to the research, Dad, that you're looking at, they are changing. And so, why don't you start off by maybe this is a new term for some that are listening. Why don't you start off and just give us some quick history of the nuns, how they got here, why do you call them the nuns? Give us the background.
The nuns are a demographic category. Uh, It is religious, but it's in this big demographic category called the cooperative election study. It's not about elections, but it's about massive amounts of data. It's one of the biggest dump loads of data in America today. And it's not only that, I'm going to put a word out there that I know will cause a yawn. It's longitudinal, which means is they ask the same question over and over, year after year after year. So not only are they getting data by the tens of thousands of people, they're getting the same questions asked so they can compare it year by year. Now let's talk about the nuns for just a moment. The nuns represent a religious affiliation, or you might say, a religious posture,
Mm,
and that religious posture is none, none of the above. It
mhm.
includes three groups, and we're going to talk about one of them today for the most part. And then in the next podcast that follows this one, we'll be talking about the other two. One of the groups in the nuns is when the question is asked, what is your preferred religious affiliation? They say nothing in particular.
Right,
That
right,
none,
right.
none.
Mhm.
That's However, included in that, added to that, I should say, are atheists and agnostics because they're pretty close to nothing in particular. So when you talk about the nuns, you're really talking about, and we'll get more in the next episode to
Mhm.
atheists and agnostics and what that means and what its implication. But you're talking about three groups of people, nothing in particular, and atheists and agnostics. And you add them up and you get the percentage of the population that represents that belief segment. Nothing in particular is the data that comes from the cooperative electric study, but the nuns was popularized by our team member, Ryan Burge,
Mhm.
who wrote a book about the nuns. And he's the one who has popularized it. And a lot of people don't know how much Ryan has contributed to this body of study. And the secular world discovered him a long time ago. The evangelical world is discovering him more and more. That's kind of the background, Jess. That's the nuns.
Mhm.
And it's important because, well, we'll see why it's important as we go through these five issues.
Yeah, we are, and I'm glad you said that. We're looking at five things church leaders need to know about the nuns. And so what we're gonna, again, kind of keeping with the backstory of the nuns, the first thing that we want church leaders to know about the nun category is that they grew very fast, so fast that they caught church leaders off guard. So it started around 2008. Is that right? When we started.
It
Seeing the
didn't
rise of
start
the
as much
nuns?
around 2008, but it was steady up to 2008.
Okay. Okay.
So the number of around 21%, it was just hanging around that in 2008. And then it was like this rocket launch. I mean, it was Elon like. It just took off, and it surprised everybody when the nuns as a demographic group went from 21% of the population to 34% of the population from 2008 to 2014. That may be a yawn to many of you who are listening or watching. Oh, the nuns went up 2000 from 2008 to 2014 from 21% to 34%. But you know what? That is the biggest demographic shift in the history of America in that period of time
Mm-hmm.
ever.
We say that again.
That is the biggest demographic shift in that time frame in the history of America. The nuns going up, not don't say 13%. That's incorrect. 13 percentage points. Or another
Right.
way that you could look at it is whatever 13 divided by 21 is, that would be the percentage that they went up. And it is unbelievable how quickly that happened. And it did catch churches off guard.
Yeah. They grew really fast. And as I was sitting there thinking about the nuns, uh, do you, especially from that growth period of 2008 to 2014, where it went from 21% to 34%, do you see that predominantly in younger generations? Was this a younger at the time? So I guess that would have been millennials would have been the younger ones. Were you seeing that more in that generation compared to the other generations, or was it equally dispersed across generations?
It was uneven, so not equally dispersed. It had a leaning toward the younger, though I cannot give you the precise number, but it had a leaning toward the younger. But it was not just a young adult phenomenon. It
Okay.
was it was across generations, but it was more noticeable in the younger generations.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm trying to think what's the why behind the growth, and maybe you know the answer. I'm just trying to dig at it. Is this connected in any way to the rise of social media? Because I'm thinking 2008. I would have just graduated college. Social media was there, Facebook was there, but nothing like it was today. Do you think that had an impact on it? Do you think this became a bit of a, you know, people began to just take hold of it because other people were doing it, or maybe they felt the freedom they could say I'm no longer Christian?
Yes,
Okay.
most definitely. High correlation. Can I
Okay.
prove can I prove causation? I don't know of any study that's out there that says because of social media, we can
Right.
say with certainty that that increased the nuns, but high correlation. And you hit on it, Jess. It was the freedom to say, I am not affiliated.
Hmm.
There was a social norm, a
Right.
social culture that said I had to say that. And here's what I really believe, though I cannot prove it, but here's what I believe. I really don't think this number increased. I just think this number became public, or they felt free to express it, and they had not in the past, even in anonymous surveys.
Okay. Okay. So you had this going back, just recapping for many, many years, you had this slow but steady growth of the nuns. They were just kind of always there. In 2018, all of a sudden you could see the graph just take off from 2018 to 2014, went from 21% to 34%. And that just, again, the first thing we're looking at is just caught church leaders off guard. Just in 6 years' time, the rise of this demographic segment, in terms of religious affiliation. So at 2014, it took off, and then from 2014 to about 2019, we saw just kind of some steadiness there. Is that
Hmm.
some
No,
growth?
really, no discernible difference. The numbers are such that you cannot even make a statistical statement
Okay.
that they have changed. And you asked the question at the beginning of this podcast, what have you been surprised at? This is one of the things where I've been surprised. I thought the nuns were going to be the majority of the United States by now.
Okay.
I thought it would have been over 50%. And that, I think I probably said that somewhere, wrote it somewhere,
Hmm.
so someone can fact check me that my facts were wrong or my
Ask
prediction
Franklin.
was wrong. But I I didn't see any way it was going to stay in the mid 30 percentile.
Yeah. Okay. So again, our first five thing we're talking about, five things church leaders need to know. Our first thing is extraordinary fast growth caught church leaders off guard. The second thing is there's been no discernible change in the number of nuns in the past 5 years, and so hanging around that 35 to 36%. So
Until
not
about 6 months ago.
not seeing a lot of change. Before we move on to our third point, though, I want to talk about another type of change, and this is the change for your church. This is good change. So pause the nuns for a second, and I want to talk about Upward Sports here. They are the ones who are willing to jump in with your church and help you reach your community. And this is the kind of change that you want. This is outreach change. This is hopefully evangelistic change. And so one of our sponsors of this podcast is Upward Sports. We're so thankful for them. They are the world's largest Christian youth sports organization, partnering with local churches to use sports as a powerful outreach tool to engage the community. They have lots of sports, including
Pickleball.
running for adults, volleyball, flag football, soccer, cheerleading. They want to partner with your church and help you reach the community. Pickleball is now available as an Upward sport. It just started earlier this month, April 1st. And this is awesome. By the way, I was out at a brand new sports complex here in Middle Tennessee, about 15 minutes from my house. And I saw a bunch of tennis courts, but you know what I saw a lot of? Pickleball courts. It's taking the world by storm, particularly in the U.S. Go check out Upward Sports. Go to upward.org/churchanswers and see how they can help you reach your community and make some change.
It's amazing. 30 years ago, roughly, I'd have to go back and look at the date, but it's been quite a while since pickleball was invented in Washington State.
Okay.
And the two guys that invented it, because they didn't have enough property to play tennis, and they tried to use badminton stuff, and they combined it, and that became pickleball a long time ago. And it was pickleball. You probably heard this story from me, Jess. It became pickleball because they had a dog named Pickle. And when the ball went errant, they'd say, "Go get the ball, Pickle, ball." And that's the story behind pickleball.
Yeah, did not know that. Look at that.
But it has taken off 30, 40 years later. And it really started off with boomers, but it is now a lot of age groups.
That's right.
A lot of age groups.
It's a fun game. So go see if Upward can help you out. Go to upward.org/churchanswers. See if they can help you reach your community. Talk about reaching. A big category that we're talking about today that the church needs to reach are the nuns, the NONES. So far, we're looking at 5 things church leaders need to know. We saw that the growth was fast. It caught church leaders off guard. Over the past 5 years, we've seen no discernible change in the number of nuns. But here's our third thing you need to know. 6 months ago, the number dropped to 34%. All right, so it's hanging out 35, 36%. But now you're saying it's down to 34%. That doesn't seem like a big deal to me.
Well, here's the big deal. From 2014 to 2019, it hung around. It didn't increase.
Okay.
But now there's a slight decrease. It is more of an affirmation that it does not, that the number of nuns is not increasing. More than saying we are startled by the decrease. This is more of an affirmation that they're not going to go up. They've been steady, and now slight decline. Now, if there's another big decline in 2026, 27, we'll come back with another statement. Hey, they really are decreasing. But this was an affirmation when this number dropped to 34%. And by the way, this is of the adult population of the United States.
18 and older.
Age 18 and up.
Mm-hmm.
This is a huge number, but it's not growing anymore. There's a lot going on here. I mean, I could make this into 10 podcasts. There's so much going on here.
Yeah. Is this the first statistical drop in this category?
Yes.
Ever?
Probably. Let me just say that, because I know the numbers up to 2008, and I know that there was a slight increase, but let me just say in the recent decades, it's the first drop, because I know that, but I don't know ever.
And again, you love stats. From a statistical perspective, anytime you see something that has never dropped and you see a first drop, that can be an indication of something. Not always, but
And with one
typically.
year, we're not going to declare, oh, the numbers dropping dramatically, but we are going to say something is going on there when you combine that with the previous years where the number was around 35 and 36%.
Okay. So again, we're looking at five things. That was our third one. 6 months ago, the number dropped to 34%. Our fourth thing, though, is again, you could look at the dates and say of the past 5 years, well, is this a COVID issue? Well, the fourth thing we're looking at is this is not a COVID issue because the trend began in 2019. So explain why that's significant.
Well, 2019 is pre-COVID date.
Okay.
2020 is the COVID date. There were hardly any churches anywhere that were even contemplating closing services or responding to COVID in 2019. But the decline in the nuns, or at least the leveling off of the nuns. Now, just to be clear to our audience, when we say the nuns are declining, that means that the people who have religious affiliation is increasing. So
Hmm.
you need to hear the inverse of that. It did not begin with COVID. The markers 1 year before COVID, which is really important because that's telling us that, hey, this started before we ever heard the word COVID. Our COVID-19 is originally thought, our coronavirus 19 is originally called. This is not a COVID issue. This is a sociological or sociologically religious issue.
Yeah, so it's not tied to a particular event because you can see that historically, where there's a major event, like 9/11. There's this return to religion, but often doesn't last.
Right.
So we're saying this is not tied to COVID, which indicates there could be something else going on. So this brings us to our fifth and final thing church leaders need to know about: the nuns are rising no more. And the fifth one is this: more than ever, churches need a prayerful evangelism strategy.
Yeah, and of course, one of my favorites is upward, because it's so direct in the community and it's
Mhm.
so easy. This isn't my sponsorship part. This is my
Yeah.
commentary on outreach
Right.
part.
Right.
This would be the time that I would be looking at some of our resources as well, like the Hope Initiative,
Mhm.
or Invite Your One, or the Good News Neighbor Toolkit. All of those that I just named, bang, 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 bang. Add that with Upward and others, and we've got all kind of tools and resources to reach in the community. And the point is, the community is ready to be reached.
Yeah.
There's this church somewhere that always reads Matthew 9, right at the end of Matthew 9. And it's just a reminder that the community has always been there to be reached, but now we have the statistical confirmation of our local community and of our nation that people are turning to religion. They may not be turning to Christ yet, but they're turning to religion. And that is significant. And here's another thing I did not expect, Jess. I did not expect in my lifetime to see this.
Yeah, it is. It's big. And talking about there is this growing receptivity to religion in general. In fact, I was
Mhm.
just real briefly, I was on a phone call with a church planner in Iowa that I get to talk with about once a month and just kind of have that relationship, trying to, as much as I can, give them some advice and coaching along the way. And they
Mhm.
had their 1 year anniversary and their Easter service, and they doubled
Wow.
for Easter Sunday, which is significant for them. And I loved hearing it. But the story he told me was one person who came to their Easter service who had basically written off religion, written off church, but decided to give it one more shot, and basically have said, "This has changed my viewpoint. I wanted it, I needed it, I was afraid, but I took one more chance, and I'm so glad I did." And so I think maybe we're seeing this, like there's an opportunity that is growing. There's a hunger. I think it's a hunger for truth, a hunger for authenticity more than
All the
ever
above.
before. And this is Jess Rayner's thoughts, so you can take it for what it's worth. I could see a connection to what's happening with this and realizing that, hey, not having any religion, it really isn't fulfilling. And at a very, very high level surface issue. Obviously, we'll talk specifics later on about atheists and agnostics. But yeah, this is, if anything, this data gets me excited.
And me too. Me
Just
too.
because of what's out there about the possibility.
And by the way, I said before we recorded, happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks.
You just turned 40.
Yep.
Uh, and as I told you, that means that the era now is AD. And for me, that means almost dead,
Yeah.
because when your youngest son turns 40, you're just really close to falling in the grave.
Oh my
So
gosh. We gotta stop this talk. You got lots of ministry years ahead of you, Dad. It's gonna be fantastic. It's gonna be great.
you're
Uh,
40. I don't have a lot left.
well, that wasn't exciting, that part of it, but the part of reaching people was exciting. So I'm gonna go back to that and just say, if you're listening to this episode of the Church Answers podcast, maybe you didn't know you needed to ask the question. Is it important that I look at the nuns in their category? Well, the answer is yes,
Hmm.
because we're seeing a trend. And so if you're a church leader, begin to think about this. Again, this is new data. It's fresh data. It's new research, but begin to think about this and see that there's an opportunity. Maybe this gets the wheels turning a little bit more about how you could begin to reach your community, and realizing there are people out there that actually want to be reached. They're just waiting on someone to reach them. Speaking of reaching, I'd love for you, as we finish up this episode of the Church Answers podcast, I'd love for you to reach out to Cheney and Associates. They are the accounting firm for the church. And so if you have any bookkeeping or any finance or any just financial needs, go talk with Cheney Associates. They know that your time is precious. They know stewardship matters, and they want to help you with both. They want to be able to take that off your plate, and so you can help lead your church. Maybe you have a bookkeeper who's getting ready to retire and you don't know who to hand the reins off to. Well, here's the answer. Again, it's another church answer. Cheney and Associates. Go to cheneyassociates.com/church answers. Set up a discovery call, 30 minutes. Just see what they can do for you. You'll be really surprised how they can help you, maybe even along the way. Help find out better financial systems, maybe even find a little hidden money somewhere. You just never know.
Hey, just before we leave Cheney, I'm not asking for a particular example, but you've probably had something like this happen where you say, I can't afford it.
Mhm.
And then you get it and you say, I can't afford not to have it. And you
Right.
see how valuable it is. That's
Mhm.
what Cheney services are.
Yep.
It's cliche, but it's an investment. It's not an expense,
Yeah.
and it will pay back many times, both financially and otherwise.
That's right. That's right. That's a good reason to go. Again, check them out at cheneyassociates.com/church answers. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Church Answers podcast. Again, we love asking the questions and we love helping find the answers. And so continue just to join in with us on these conversations. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you give us a like, share it. If you're listening on your favorite podcast app, please give us a review. And again, feel free to chime in and let us know if you have particular church questions. Ask them. Send us an email over here at the Church Answers team. We'd love to answer it. So thank you so much for joining us on this episode. We look forward to seeing the next one where we talk about more about this category in particular, talking about atheists and agnostics. We'll see you on that episode.